Hey guys, in today's video, we're going to talk about how the left foot works in the golf swing. Hey guys, Eric here at the Bethlehem Golf Club. I want to talk to you today about how the left foot works in the golf swing. Now, before we dive in, I want to talk for a brief moment about CogornoGolf.com. This is how we can work together over these winter months, which are crucial to improving your swing and getting ready for next springtime. So, as a member of Cogorno Golf, most importantly, you get access to our Facebook group. That's where you can post your swings. I will give you feedback on what your most important priorities are, how you need to work on them, and guide you through that improvement process over the winter. Also, as a member, you get access to all of our master classes. You get access to everything on the site, including the quick fix section, the practice section, and the member library. I would love for us to work together, and I hope that you guys check out CogornoGolf.com. We'll put a link in the description down below. Okay, so let's talk about how the left foot works in the golf swing. Now, there's a couple pieces that we want to talk about, and basically we're going to break it down into segments of the swing. What should it look like at the setup position, what happens during the backswing, and then what happens during the downswing. Then we're going to talk about what happens with different clubs, is it any different or not, and just some little pieces to look for so that you have an understanding of how that foot works, if you need to even worry about it or not at all. We'll also show you some examples of the best players in the world, how their left foot works. So first, let's start with the setup position. Now, at address, the left foot's relatively simple, okay? When I take my setup position here, what we would say typically in terms of stance width would be one thing to factor in, and that does depend on your different clubs. A safe stance width with like a 7-iron that I have here would be if you drew a straight line up from your ankles, they would be at or just outside of shoulder width. Okay, so in terms of where should the left foot be in space, stance width is one piece. Let's say ankles at or just outside of shoulder width is a good mark. Now, also at the address position, there typically is going to be some amount of foot flare. Okay, my foot's going to be flared or ducked out some amount. The question always is how much? And the answer is there's not a perfect amount. What I would say would be common amongst better ball strikers, if this is just 0, would be somewhere between 15, 20 to 30 degrees flared out. 45 degrees of foot flare is probably a little excessive for most people. I would say 15, 20 degrees, 30 maybe. So if this straight forward was a clock, my left foot's probably about 11 o'clock. So if you're 12 o'clock on this line, my toes here are probably at about 11 o'clock, I would say on average. So about shoulder width, front foot flared a little. The deal with the foot flare is the more I flare it towards the target, so toes out, the easier it is for me to rotate in that direction. So that's a nice positive part. The con is when I have that same foot flared out this way, it makes it harder to rotate in the opposite direction. So if you want more rotation in the follow through, you would flare your foot out this way. If you wanted less rotation for whatever reason, or you wanted more rotation this way, you would potentially have your foot less flare. So just remember, whatever direction your toes point, it's easier for you to rotate in that direction. So that's basically the setup pieces in terms of how the left foot is. Okay, backswing pieces in terms of left foot. So a couple different things that can happen during the backswing. Again, some of these optional. When I take my normal setup position, the first thing is where the pressure is in the foot, okay? So if I look at an iron, I've got a 7-iron here. Now the lower the iron I hit, or let's say the shorter the iron, the closer I get to a wedge, the more you would typically see a little bit more pressure towards the lead foot. So for us as a right-handed golfer, the left foot, okay? And so a little bit more pressure forward on my lead foot, the shorter the club is. As the club gets longer, normally that neutralizes more towards 50-50. So with a really good golfer, you know, with a sand wedge, you might see the pressure in the left foot, maybe a little bit more towards 60-40. As I work up with my 7-iron, again, that might be 55-45. I might even be 50-50 at this point. And then driver would be pretty neutral. So, you know, 50-50 is a safe thing to start with. Okay, there's always feels versus reels, but about 50-50, left foot flared out just outside of shoulder width would be a good starting point. Now, as I work during the backswing, the whole point of me telling you that is there's going to be a little bit of pressure shifted off of that. So as you work during your backswing, again, there's different ways to do this, but I'd say as a stock model, I wouldn't want you to start 50-50 and then push down and forward so you're 60-40. I would rather, wherever you start with, there's a pressure shift. So you're basically unweighting your left foot. Okay, so that means you're taking weight or pressure. You're sort of unweighting. You're taking pressure off your left foot as you work back into the top of your backswing. So you might go from 60-40 or 50-50 into 60-40 to your right, or 70-30 to your right as you work through the top of the backswing. You want to unweight. It's less about a big shift to the right. It's unweighting your lead foot. Again, I'm not moving a ton of mass. Okay, there's not a huge sway motion. There's a little sway, but as I work back, it's going to be unweighting my left foot. That would be a pretty common piece amongst great ball strikers, both with the irons and the driver, but especially with the driver if you want more speed purposes. So if I just hit kind of a stock shot here, and I did those setup pieces, front foot flared out to about 11 o'clock, ankles outside of shoulders, and I'm going to unweight my left foot. Or I feel like I'm pressing down into my right foot a little bit as I'm working back, unweighting my left foot. That would be part number one as I work back. Now during the backswing, there's different options. Okay, some great ball strikers let that left heel kick up, okay? Some keep it more down. If you look, the older ball strikers, good players, a lot of them, the greater majority, probably 75-80% of them, would let their left heel work up on the way back. So their toes would stay on the ground, but their left heel would work up. Now, as they did that, you'll notice my knee goes in a little bit to the top. They'd let the heel come up. I personally like that movement. I think it makes it easier to unweight the left foot. It makes it easier for your lead knee to kick in, which means easier hip rotation, which means some other good things. And it makes it easier to replant that as a trigger move as you start your downswing. So I like unweighting the left foot. I like the heel to come up. Now, does that mean that I like this? Okay, no, of course you gotta have some middle grounds with some of these things, but a little bit of unweighting the left foot, a little bit of the left heel working up as the knee kicks in is something that a lot of great ball strikers have done. Let's go ahead and do one like that. Again, just a little bit of an unweighting as you go back, not a huge mass shift. That would be part number one. Now, can you make a backswing where your left heel comes down, stays down the ground? Of course you can. I could definitely make a swing where when I go back, my left heel just stays planted the whole time. Okay, that's perfectly fine. So I'll go ahead and do one like that. And that would be fine as well. I can definitely keep the heel down, or I could lift it up. I prefer to lift it up, especially as we work into the driver pattern. So that's kind of the main pieces on the way back. It's okay if there's a little bit of roll to your lead foot, so some pronation, supination, meaning this way. It's okay if you would roll in or bank in a little bit on your left foot as you work back. I definitely don't want to see any sort of supination or roll this way. But as your heel comes up, okay for a little bit of roll, but unweighting the lead foot being the main thing here. Let's talk about, most importantly, what happens during the downswing follow-through. Okay, so how the left foot works during the downswing follow-through is partially determined by what you do going back, meaning on the backswing, if I let my left heel come up, my left knee in, then I'm gonna have more of a left knee down, or left heel down, left knee out, rather, movement. So if I let my heel up, knee in, I'll have a little bit more of a natural reaction of heel down, knee out. If I didn't do that, and I kept my heel down and maybe my knee doesn't go in, it goes more straight forward, I'll typically have a little bit less of that natural reaction, or at minimum, I don't have to replant my foot. Let's assume you do the model where the heel does come up a little bit. So when I make my backswing here, I allow a little bit of the heel up. Now, as I work down during my downswing, I'm gonna feel my heel replants right away, and my knee goes from in. You know, the checkpoint is you want to get your knee kind of straight in line with your hip during the backswing. That's how far in I'd like it. And then it starts going out away from that. So it works in, at least in line with my hip, and then that works out. Now, as that knee works out, that heel replants. My knee goes towards the target, my belt buckle turns, that heel replants. That would be part one. Now, right after that happens, my knee goes out, my heel replants. That's happening basically at the same time. My heel also, I'm going to have some natural roll to it, or supination, or rolling on the edge of my foot. You'll see that in a lot of really good ball strikers. That motion allows more of my pelvis rotation than later extension, so more rotation that way. So again, I've never consciously from the top felt like I'm rolling my ankle. It's always been a natural reaction. I think most good ball strikers who do that would say the same thing. Not to say you can't train it in, but again, this is just more information based. So what we have here so far is a little flare at address, taking pressure off the foot during the backswing, replanting it as I start down. Those would be the pieces to focus on. So a little bit of foot flare, taking pressure off, replanting, And that would be how I would start on the way down. Now again, you see how I finish and my foot's a little bit rolled. It also has turned more. So there was a thing going on for a while where people were recommending you should keep your feet quiet or your foot on the ground. And what we're going to show you here in a second is a bunch of players who let that foot slide. What you're going to see is if I start at 11 o'clock, a lot of good players will end up with the toes pointing much more towards the target. There's a natural rotation of that as my femur externally rotates, as my leg and my ankle rotate and supinate, there's going to be a little rolling. So if you finish your swing and your toes and foot have moved and pointed towards the target, that's a commonality amongst great ball strikers. You don't have to try and fix that. I'll go ahead and do one more, and then we'll show you a couple examples. So my foot is pointed out. I'm going to unweight it, let my heel come up, replant it, and then allow that thing to turn as it does. It's okay if it even pulls back a little. Your left foot can move. It doesn't need to be very stable. So flare it out, unweight it, replant it. And that's a really good trigger motion, especially for some of you guys who are stuck at address or don't know really how to move or start the backswing or start the downswing. You can use that foot motion as a trigger. Check out some of these great ball strikers who did the same thing with their feet. Okay, so here let's take a look at the basics of the setup and initial backswing pieces. Now, what you can see here is a couple pieces within the lead foot, right? So we said in terms of width of stance, sort of ankles at or just outside of shoulder width. And also clearly we can see the foot flare here. So those are two pieces you can see there at address that are commonalities amongst most players. You know, the reason I picked this video to start with is you can definitely see the shift of the pressure off of the lead foot. See that initial little shift motion, right? So that's the unweighting of that lead foot that we're talking about. As he works up to the top, that lead knee works in some amount. And then as he starts down, he's going to replant that onto his lead foot. Most all these players will be fully replanted there by the time we get to left arm parallel. Now, he doesn't redirect his lead foot into the follow through. He's pretty stable on that, but you can see the setup pieces there. And then here's another example, Tommy Fleetwood, same sort of pieces, the foot flare, the width of stance there, foot flared out some amount. We'll see as he starts to work back up to the top, a little bit of an early pressure movement right there as he starts. And then that initial same sort of piece, right? Lead leg is at least in from the hip on the way back, which again is related to that foot. And then as he starts back down, fully replanted there by left arm parallel, and then you'll see a little bit more roll in his lead foot, lead ankle here into his follow through there compared to where he started. And then as we start to work our way up and we start to see some of the driver motions, it's where you can start to see some more of the foot kind of replanting and some cool things. So here's Rory with the driver, not a perfect camera angle, but you can see some cool pieces here. As he works up to the top, there you see that sort of up and off of it movement. There to start back, which is a commonality of the long drivers here. An unweighting in the lead foot, a little bit of an upward motion. We'll see that lead leg works in. Now what you'll see with a lot of them is from the top, this lead foot is flared out. Now you'll see as he replants pressure from the top to left arm parallel, his foot, see how his left ankle, his foot actually comes up right there, and then he replants it before left arm parallel, actually straighter than how it was before. And you'll see that in the next couple of videos, how their foot is flared here, their left heel comes up. As they replant the heel, you'll see the foot comes more straight 90, and then from left arm parallel through, now you'll start to see that open back up as he unweights it again, right? So there his foot comes off the ground, and then the foot ends up flaring. And that's a speed movement that you'll see as a commonality among some of these longer ball strikers here. So as another example, let's pull up one of the longest in the world ever, Jamie Sadlowski. We'll see some of the same things. Again, just focusing on the left foot here. Left foot is flared out at the address position. There's the up and back movement there, unweighting the lead foot early with the driver. The heel clearly coming up off the ground. Now we'll see again from the top into left arm parallel, he'll replant the foot more square than it was going back. There you see the foot's replanted, he's at left arm parallel. Now you'll see the foot come off the ground and start to open up. See there, the foot comes off. Left foot starts pointing much more towards the target. Again, there's several other pieces in terms of leg work involved there, but there you can see the same footwork motion. Unweights the lead foot early, replants it in early transition, more square than he was on the way back, and then it pulls up and out on the way through. And just one more, show you the same sort of thing here. Here's a Justin Thomas. Same pieces here with the driver. Let's get him at his address position. He's got a little bit of an off of it movement there again, so unweighting the lead foot early. As he gets to the top in transition, we'll see that left foot starts to replant more towards square. See that right there? Now the left foot's not as flared as it was, and then he'll come off the ground and the leg will go more towards the target. And so you see this in a lot of these guys that produce a lot of speed. Here's J.B. Holmes with a fairway, what it looks like. That unweighting, see that little shift to the right? So same sort of piece, little initial pressure shift, little upward motion. Left knee kicks in, and then you'll see in transition, the left foot replants here early, pretty square right there, and then it'll start to fly out from there and go towards the target. So same sort of motions here. Let's get him a little farther. That replant to left arm parallel, the foot's more straight, and then from there into the follow through, that'll start to lift up and work towards the target. So some pretty common pieces here amongst the long drivers and guys who hit the ball really far that you can check out and potentially implement in your own game. All right, guys, hopefully you learned something here about how the left foot works. Again, you don't have to necessarily be thinking about this stuff, but at least now you understand if it's even something that you have to worry about or not, and how the left foot works. As always, if you guys have any questions, leave a comment down below. Hey guys, thanks for watching today's video. If you liked the video, do us a favor, click the like button down below. Click the notification bell. Also, please subscribe. Thank you guys again for watching.